lane, it's going to be Sakin, Super Ken in the jungle, Chorizo in the XP lane, Moreno in the mid, and Vin in the roam. And, you know, the thing about Chorizo specifically in the XP lane is he is always that roadblock for these teams. So I feel like if you're Saudi Arabia, you really want to be able to handle this XP lane, right? And at the same time, when we talk about a lot of these things that have been shifting into place for Saudi Arabia, they've done great against the Philippines in the early game. Right? Hopefully this little bit of a reset has helped them lock in for what they have to accomplish here.
Coming in from a loss, being fell down in the lower bracket, Saudi Arabia. Line up on our screens, we have Lark on the gold lane, we have Tarzan in the jungle lane, Sanji on the XP, Coffin mid lane, and Troll on the roam. They have outstanding performances, how they went through from the group stages till now, and this chance could actually give them another break, or even a way of recovering from what they've lost. And that was against Philippines.
And, you know, now that we have, again, that reintroduction of these two teams, mainly you want to be able to see Saudi Arabia give this a go. Once again, imagine here, OSX, if they take Indonesia once again, their third series, it goes 3 games, right? That would be 9 games for Indonesia. And, you know, that can happen here. Definitely is something in the cards if Saudi Arabia can pull it off. But before we talk more about the matchup, we are going to be throwing it over to the stage for John Fallout there to introduce the teams for this matchup.
Thank you so much to Naisu and OSX, and that's right, it is time for our lower bracket final. Ladies and gentlemen, in Yash, make some noise as we get ready for this matchup between these two teams. First and foremost, to my right, repping in green, is none other than the heart of the Middle East, becoming quickly a hub for esports globally. It's Saudi Arabia! And representing this team, we have Sanji, Tarzan, Cuffin, Lark, and of course, Troll. Tarzan will join me for an interview here in a moment. On the other side of the stage, tearing through the lower bracket, everyone in their way has gotten destroyed so far. It was Mongolia first, it was Egypt next. Now they're looking to take home and take down the Titans of the Middle East in Saudi Arabia. It's Indonesia! Chorizo, Super Ken, Sakin, Moreno, and of course, Vin. Vin, I'm going to interview you in a second as well, but Tarzan, I want to start with you. What is the mentality for your team right now? You guys just suffered a 2-0 loss to the Philippines. What is the mentality like for you all, and how are you hitting reset?
Well, we should reset. It's a loss, so we need to focus on this on another series. That's what we need to do.
I like the mentality. Of course, Indonesia, no easy foe, no easy opponent. You mentioned you were prepared for the Philippines. The Philippines beat Indonesia, but they've been on a tear in the lower bracket. How do you calm them down, and who on their team do you have to shut down if you want to win?
Well, we have to shut them down all. So we have to focus on them all. We have to win every lane to win this game.
There you have it for Tarzan and Saudi Arabia. Round of applause for Tarzan and Saudi Arabia, everybody, as we bring it on over to Vin of Indonesia. You have been dominating the lower bracket, first Mongolia and then Egypt. What is going well for your team so far? How are you clicking so well? And how did you reset after your loss yesterday to the Philippines?
We just try to enjoy and relax, have fun with the game.
Are you going to be the MVP again for your team, or are you going to give it to someone your teammate this time?
I think me.
Vin calls himself the MVP once again. Again, I like the confidence, my friend. All right, well, there you have it. Look, last thing I'm going to ask you, you know there are thousands of Indonesian fans watching right now. I got to give you a chance. Any words that you want to share for your Indonesian fans at home?
Buat fans Indonesia, balik lagi yang gue bilang, hari ini hari yang panjang, tetap doain kita. Gue bakal, dan tim gue bakal ngasih yang terbaik buat kalian juga. Dan kita akan melaju ke final.
You go again, and the crowd reacts to that one. Well, guess what? It's time for our lower bracket final. It's going to be one great match between Saudi Arabia and Indonesia. Gentlemen, shake hands if you'd like, Tarzan and Vin. And let's lock it up, because it's time for our lower bracket final. Casters, back to you.
Thank you so much, John. An amazing introduction. Saudi Arabia and now Indonesia. Things are going to heat up here. And with the chance that they have to climb back up, Man, the endurance of these two teams right now completely going strong, just extending the fascinating advantage of just continuing through all the challenges. Still, at this point, kudos to these two teams just battling it out.
That's what they're going to have to do, right? What's at the end of this series is the grand final spot tomorrow against a team like the Philippines who, yes, reminding everybody, is undefeated. They have had a massive run, and now this is where it starts. Once again, Indonesia is probably who a lot of people are thinking there's a good chance that they end up against that classic matchup, Philippines, Indonesia in the grand final, but Saudi Arabia, if you have not kept your eye on them, there's things to point out here. The fact that they came from the upper bracket, right? They had a great run up to that point. They won against the Philippines, and you obviously saw the improvement that they had. Can they translate it to this matchup against Indonesia, who, reminding you as well, yesterday, they got handled by the Philippines very quickly, right? It started there, that 2-0 yesterday, sending them here to where they are, and that's why when we started the day, they had to go through 6 games up to this point, Series 1, Series 2. This is now their 3rd series of the day. You're wondering, is there some exhaustion here? Are they still rolling on momentum that we saw them go from Series 1 to Series 2? It was, it was great. But at this point, right, mentally thinking about Indonesia, how are they going to settle in this? What type of composition once again are they going to go with? I liked also in their last matchup before, we had the Philippines-Saudi Arabia match, it was like Egypt trying to basically do what Indonesia drafted, that lineup, the Khadija, the Kaja, go with that, the Fanny, if you will, right? High risk, high reward. Indonesia is one of those teams that can play both sides of the ball. They like the high risk, high reward type of lineups. They also like those more foundational, solid lineups that you typically see at the highest level of MLBB competitive play.
More on the action, more on the flashy plays, but execution-wise, it's always how they compare to the utility draft that we've seen. We've seen them adjust from having a loss. We see them rise coming from a win. All those learnings right now coming from Indonesia, even from Saudi Arabia, is always translating to success and having a way of recovery. So I get your point that this team, specifically for Indonesia, handles so well in terms of pressure and also challenges, having an advantage, knowing the two sides of the ball here, leaving also a space for Saudi Arabia to bounce back up. They came from a loss, straight 0-2. They have more ways to learn about the draft from the Philippines, they learn about the fight from the Philippines. Maybe something or some amazing thing that they can pull off from their own book, from their own comfort pick, can actually make things work for this one against the final match that we're about to see today.
You know how I've been talking about this OSX is like Saudi Arabia technically already has their early game on lockdown, for the most part. Like they had that figured out. They settled in. Now I'm going to ask you specifically, what can they do? Like when you're watching that mid-game, when we continuously say like, all right, their mid-game transition has to be better. What does that necessarily mean? Again, remember that we do have a lot of viewers throughout these playoffs and everything. Sometimes this is their first time watching MLBB, right? And now in a way, when I say mid-game transition, what does that mean? Like what does Saudi Arabia have to actually do to give this a series against a team like Indonesia that is so strong, it's so stacked? What does Saudi Arabia have to do there?
In terms of draft, they have all their equations. You have all the formulas to actually adapt on the rising meta, on how Indonesia utilizes their own picks. One thing that we see today from Saudi Arabia is they utilize more on the sustain. They utilize more on the utility. They have more ways to capitalize on those tanks. And similarly, we see Chos being banned recently from Team Philippines. Now we head on to the draft. We're seeing first 3 bans here. We're looking at the Edith, we're looking at the Kaja, as well as the Kadata. This was nice referring from the first moment this broadcast started. You don't want that pick off, you don't want that burst down coming from this deadly combo. And for Saudi Arabia's way of looking at this direction, they don't want that mayhem that they can receive coming from a Fanny, even for a Joy. Adding the Bakita on the table, that's too much of a damage burst that you might actually come across with early game.
Interesting
First path here. First pick on Dinovaria. Probably capitalizing on their strength here. Vision. You get pokes.
It's funny too because, hey man, Fredrin's open and they didn't go for it. And we were talking about this earlier. We're like, all right, Fredrin, first pick blue side, he's like 90%. Well,
Yeah.
here's the 10%, right? Like this is the difference, and that's why we don't say 100% of the time, right? So Novaria picked up first pick blue side. What does that do? Well, number one, we don't actually know if it's going to go in the roam or the mid. Again, variations are there. We obviously have these statistics, and it works either way, especially if they want to pair it up with a nice, bursty type mage in the mid. But the response from Saudi Arabia, this is actually really good for them.
Yeah,
they pick it up.
Yeah. Fredrin, Franco, comfort picks, especially for a troll here, and for the pickups, or pickoffs rather, they're eyeing against Indonesia, might be, fall down in the marksman choice that they can actually get. The Baksha is so good right now in a sustained game, even for longer team fights. Heading into late game, you have so much answer to each of the damage that you receive. Pairing with the Novaria, those openings from mid to late game is actually so beneficial just in case early game doesn't go in your favor. A lot of ways that we're seeing today, 3 games, 2-0s, but amazingly we see amazing results for this Baksha pick alone.
All right, I want to see what they do with this to finish up their first phase. They do take the Brody. Probably, I don't have the whole stat breakdown with Brody alone, but I know he's really risen through the ranks, at least here for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Able to really lock down a lot of wins for teams. Not only that, but MVPs. Right? How many MVPs have we seen on Brody in either of the teams, honestly? He's just a solid gold lane choice. Not only that, but it works with the game plan when you have the Novaria, obviously, is to utilize the vision she provides you, but also the range you're working with, right, for the most part. And with Brody, it's smooth. Like the way that his kit works, you can just get the marks off. You're building damage pretty early on, especially if you're rushing, the Malefic War, for example. And then you just rely on torn apart memories, and half the time you're just fading away torn apart memory, right? And you somehow stack up on kills. So response-wise, like I said, Saudi Arabia, they don't lock in their gold lane yet. They decide to take up the Eve, who we've actually seen banned quite a bit.
Yeah, good ban on the Valentina. They're not giving away an extra amount of the same ultimate that this hero can copy in the hands of Indonesia. Just securing their way of organizing their own team fights. You have the AoE of the RWM. You have a hook coming from a Franco. There's taunt from Fredin alone. So in team fights, you have all the checks. You have to see how will you have the hold once you start the fight and it continuously breaks out. So with that, you need to pair it up with something good. With a marksman. On the options, we have Carry banned out. We also see Joy banned out, but also what's left on the table is we also see the possibility of a Yuzong showing up, being the correct counter for Eve. Might as well see this time around for Saudi Arabia, they might secure their marksman. You have the Claude, you have the Beatrix present. Now Indonesia completely bans it.
Okay, I like it, right? And then with that, we basically have to think about how does the second phase go, right? Second phase-wise, you want to see what gold lane is locked in from Saudi Arabia. That might be this option as soon as they get to this pick in about 30 seconds. They're going to have to respond, though, against this Brody, right? For the most part, you're working against range. That's why it's great that they actually picked up the Franco right away. They don't lock in the gold lane yet. They take up the Terizla, a hero that is going to do wonders for the lineup they have so far. Again, you're working with the real-world manipulation and this penalty zone now, not to mention your pick-off potential. So you have many options here.
Yeah, talking about range, good point there, because there's so much throw and poke with this the Novaria alone, and having X-Borg right now present for Indonesia has a lot of ways. So penetrating the backline defense of Saudi Arabia, being able to get in the range with the Eve also disables your chance to just go in for the pokes in team fights, disables your team to have a follow-up from the back, and also have a front line disable. X-Borg alone plus the back is the sticky situation that you need to get out to. And hello, Angela.
Wow.
Take it to the sustain. We see it now for Indonesia. Never fails to surprise us more with this kind of picks.
On the wings of love, Angela comes through. Hard guard's going to have to be dealt with, right? And I was actually asking you this at the beginning of the day, back in Series 1, when Indonesia was playing. I was like, do you think Vin wants to play the Angela, at some point in that series? He didn't then, but brings it out now for the final series that they're going to play through today. Will that be enough to help them sustain through some of this, some of that early action that they're looking for? I think it could work great for them. Not only that, but with the Heart Guard, the way that works, it buys you a little more time. it also forces a response from Saudi Arabia. How are they going to play around that? How are they going to put the pressure early on? Because that's where we saw them shine against Philippines the previous series. And like I was saying, can they transition really well into the mid-game?
Yeah, transition, synergy will be in check. How will they pull off this composition right on to the draft? I see it's a good way of answering this kinds of, types of draft and composition. You're looking at Saudi Arabia, capitalizes more on the team fights. On the side of Indonesia, we also see more of the sustain. Having engaged, having a chance to poke early game is the name of their strategy.
Well, here we go. The last series of the day for this lower bracket. Indonesia has been through the ringer, and Saudi Arabia finding themselves here after the loss against the Philippines. Who comes out on top to meet them in the grand final? It starts out with the first game of the best of three. Vin already has to flicker out, dodging the hook too. This is risky.
Forced out a resource onto the roamer of Indonesia, trying to take a peek out of that orange. Specifically, he doesn't want to even overcommit to use that resource. And right now, Troll is responding in, using the Void Crystal as slow. Look at the hook, Super Ken now being slowed down, but 3 members of Saudi Arabia present here trying to hold off and push away members of Indonesia at this point in time.
Okay, as no one is pretty much claiming the first blood just yet. That's what you expect, right? Leading into that first turtle, 40 seconds away. A lot of aggression here from both junglers. Super Ken wanting to poke down, even Tarzan forcing them back a little bit longer. He wants to start this momentum early on, right? The rest of the team has to get that level 4 as quick as possible. They need those tools for that first big objective fight. And you can see that's how they're kind of dealing with this rotation, right? Even Vin focusing up here, trying to help out a little bit with Chorizo, because Sanji, we've seen this before in the Chorizo, right? It's deadly. It's quite tanky. As soon as he's level 4, he's almost going to be there for that turtle fight. The penalty zone is a huge threat. You don't want to deal with that. Look at that. They're forcing it up here.
Wow, Sanji on low HP, on level 3, forced.
Won't be there for the fight.
Delaying his XP level just by the turtle showed up in this game. Saudi Arabia, though, is trying to get a peek here on how Super Ken is going on the control. Saudi is looking for a vision.
Free taken.
Freely taken, but meanwhile on the bottom, Saken receiving damage. Tarzan, a Pacer Trap would not connect, but there's Stroll. Super Kendo secures the objective. Chorizo as well, trying to secure this orange out of Saudi Arabia's hands. This time around, it's complete diversion. 2 objectives stolen.
Great way to put it, diversion, right? They got the information they needed from the bottom side, putting the pressure there. They got the flicker out from Saken, right? But really, they traded the turtle. Now they've traded their orange buff. They're still trying to deal with the purple here.
Who gets to steal this purple right now? Oh, we have Retribution Herb back there. So
nice
this
hook.
time, RWL being placed down in the turret on Saudi Arabia. Super Ken. There goes the Love Waves. There goes the Hard Guard. Response onto this Angel. He's still
running.
using the turret's response. Trying to go into the marathon here.
Wow.
Rapid Boots picked up by Sanji. Super Ken still lives with the pokes and with the aid of the Hard Guard. Finn, a great reinforcement just in time.
I'm actually surprised with that, right? He literally just broke their ankles rolling around, and he's staying there. Super Ken, along with Vin, putting the pressure. Lark, oh my goodness, first blood from down under with the Astral Recall. Nice snipe shot there.
This is the danger. 3 Impure Rage Knights to 3 present on Indonesia in terms of poke. Even X-Borg has it, Chorizo. A bit of a difference for hybrid penetration that we've seen yesterday.
They need it. I mean, those little things do count, but definitely as we take a look at the replay here, you're going to find it. And again, this was the fact that, all right, we were going to get a look at it, but they planted Super Ken there, surviving, and then he gets the Heart Guard from Vin, and they keep them at bay. Lark is the one who needs the time to build up here on this Irithel. Look at this all again, once again for the buffs.
Sanji and Tarzan is eyeing on his orange. Meanwhile, 4 members. Indonesia is here to defend. Sanji as well, still holding the front line. Looking to knock up Super Ken onto the turret now.
Nice lockdown.
Locked down by the Bloody Hunt. Coffin secures 1 kill. Super Ken falls down.
Good
Making
response.
a double for Coffin. A response by Saudi Arabia just in time for the second objective of the game.
Huge exchange there for Saudi Arabia. Cuffin grabbing the double kill there on this Eve is clutch, because as he scales up, has the early kills, he is crucial for a lot of the success here for Saudi Arabia, especially when they start trying to actually contest these objectives. The second turtle is up here. Do they give it away? It looks like they tried to reset and get here in time. It's half health.
Half health, who takes it, who gets it? Tarzan though has eyes, retributions on point. Who gets it? Super Ken secures the objective. Now it's last insanity right on to Sanji. Tarzan trying to sustain it. Tarzan secures the kill out of Indonesia. One man falls. Cerezo takes another one, a trade of 2-1. Now on for the chase. Troll still sustaining that pokes from Super Ken, and Saudi Arabia still managing through that skirmish.
Tough one to be in, right? They give up the turtle. Looks like there's still some pressure, obviously, between the two gold laners too. Lark still trying to farm up as much as possible. Still needs plenty of time. Meanwhile, Sakin, he dealt with a little bit of pressure himself, but ultimately is fine farming up. Cerezo, though, like I was just saying about Cuffin, the fact that he got those 2 kills this point in the game is really going to help him out on this export. A hero that typically isn't picked up unless for a certain reason, and that time is the true damage. There's the Heart Guard, Super Ken.
Super Ken might eye on one member here. On the gold lane, connecting the torn apart memory. Sakin secures the kill. Troll on the other hand, looking for a way to defend himself. He falls down in the hands of Moreno. Sakin now takes another turret. Now Indonesia is on slowly a roll, advancing at a gold 5-3.
Yeah, it's getting there, right? We're talking about this point in the game. They've got themselves the 2 turtles. This is going to be a tier 2 turret. They grab them for themselves as well, furthering that gold lead even more. 6.5 minutes in, now a comfortable almost 3,000 gold ahead. Saudi Arabia, what do they have to do here? They've got to just kind of calm down a little bit. A lot of these hooks that are being thrown out, they have to be able to capitalize on it. You're running the focusing mark. Super Ken is planting himself. He's becoming a resident in the jungle of Saudi Arabia, and that is a problem, obviously, right? So if you want to continue to get gapped here, because that's what's happening to Tarzan. Look at him. He's level 8 to Super Ken level 10, and that's why Super Ken has no problem just taking his buffs, sitting there around that camp and then waiting for this turtle to come up. They've got the green signal to go for it, and that's exactly what they do. So if you're Saudi Arabia and you have this pick-off potential with the Franco, you have to start picking people off. It's going to get out of control, if not faster than Sooners, right? So look at them. They're trying to make play here to up top. The response is coming through. He's going to go back, though. Sanji's not going to deal with it. We take a look quickly at the items, how things are falling into place, and you can see the disparity in damage for Saudi Arabia right now, especially the time that Lark needs to catch up here.
Looking things about to even defend or even have an advantage for damage. The good to point out, the Department of Damage of Saudi Arabia, they might be forced to build defensive items. They might be forced to answer skirmishes such as this. Another objective being eyed by Super Ken, planting himself once again, becoming a complete resident. Stolen once again. No objective, no orange left for Tarzan. He's just circling around, eyeing again the purple.
They both used the retribution for that orange, and now Super Ken still planning himself here. Wants to try to get it, and okay, luckily Tarzan gets the buff finally there, but still, look at this. Working with that level gap still. Conceal play going to be used. Troll might be looking for his own moment.
There's the taunt. Cerezo has the immortality, though, still having a way to survive this. Look at that up top. Finn and Sakin throwing down Torabot memory onto 2. 3 members still present now on a killing spree. Cerezo.
Nice hook.
Nice hook right in the turret. 1 kill secured. Sakin falls down. Saudi Arabia on a retreat, but Super Ken still looking at an avenue here. Look at the poke coming in from Moreno. As for recall, taking the punch out of Saudi Arabia's defense.
Okay. Taking a look at the items here too, right? Things are kind of falling into place. We're waiting for that next big objective, which is going to be the Lord here. And, you know, as we take a look, we got the replay here. Yes, we do. We have it. Look at the damage, right? Socket. But then he gets hooked. And I was like, Troll, you gotta find your pickoffs. That's why you draft this hero, the Franco man, right? You have Franco. And if you are not getting these hooks, if you're not getting pickoffs, then what can you do with that? Not too much. The great thing, Cuffin picking up another big item for him. This will be crucial for them as that Lord fight breaks out, right? He still hasn't died, which is great. Able to set up the Death Box, the real world manipulation like we like to call it. Lark also just picking up Berserker's Fury, but still, you can see it, right? They're down to 5,000 gold. They're not even going to contest this, man. They're just going to give it up over here to Super Ken. Indonesia now securing themselves a Lord here. Not only did they take all the turtles, they take this first Lord, and now their eyes are set on the buffs as well.
Look at the slow. just connecting to Chorizo alone. Divine Glaive making the work. Coffin, as you said, the death box, the RWM of this Eve is a big of a threat. A poke, burst, magic damage from Saudi Arabia they can utilize against Indonesia. Meanwhile, up top, someone's being immobilized. They're onto the turret, looking for the taunt. Tarzan receives damage as well. Look at that, Astral Recall being used, and also the Echo. Look at that hit onto that Terizla. Still managing through the defense. Now damage off Moreno is still showing. It hurts by the minute.
It's tough to deal with, right? I mean, at this point, an Ice Queen wand being picked up for Moreno, it's going to be tougher because you're working against Vision being provided with that Novaria and also poking potential. And every time he lands one of those Astral Recalls, you get slowed, right? So now you're finding yourself dealing with this Lord. It is only the first one. They should be able to clear it up pretty well unless a hook comes through. Super Ken jumps in.
Jumps in, use the Tortoise Puissance. There is the RWM. What is the answer now? Saudi Arabia use the ultimate out. Sanji has his Ominous Ice. Being able to form a defense over Indonesia's damage, now being pushed into base. Saudi Arabia now still left to defend and clear some minions from all lanes as 11 minutes of the game happens.
Saudi Arabia finding themselves with their backs against the wall in game number 1 here. In this best of 3, it's quite a lot of ground they have to make up if they hold on a little bit longer. A lot of teams don't end it here this early on. There are a few that do. That hook is not going to find the target, though.
That's the penalty zone onto Thu. Looking at that part, that's still damage. We felt that damage onto Sanji. We felt that coming through. And looking just by his items, he has the Dominance Eyes, even just the Athena shield. Wow, just making the magic work. That's a complete setup that he can give for his team.
What we need here, if you're Saudi Arabia, is, let's say, another 3 minutes. Lark has 2 of the items he needs on this Irithyll. He's got to build that third one, and then you can really start to play around that. You saw a great penalty zone, by the way, from Sanji, but as I was saying, they're lacking damage, man. There's not much you can do to follow up against that, especially with the sustainability from Indonesia, right? Vin already having this Angela alone, and then he's picking up a Genius Wand. So picking that up to help whittle down the magic defense of Saudi Arabia so that it's even more painful to get poked by Moreno, right? Lark is now finally picking up his third item here. He's got the Hosklots. This helps him sustain some of the fight, right? But so far, like I said, some of the damage is just too much to handle unless they can take a member out here. So that might be the game plan. You can see them. They know the information. Lord is up here. Do they actually want to contest it? It doesn't look like it. Chorizo holding down this part of the map. Won't even let them get close.
Yes, Chorizo just boxing out everyone, but Saudi Arabia, Super Ken secures the Lord. Now they might be in a chance if taking down one. Lark secures. Look at the damage and the poke just coming in from Moreno. Sanji now being trapped in 4. Now penalty zone being used to retrieve back, even to hold. No damage connects on the Suck and secures the point. Indonesia, another take, objective and a kill. Forced Saudi Arabia back against retreat back to their base.
Now that they've secured themselves that Lord, they're going to be making their way. It goes to the top side. The rest of Indonesia will focus on the rest of these resources, and then they wait to go probably the mid lane. Vin going to go ahead and push out this bottom, trying to even out these waves a little bit here so that the timing is right into the push of the base. In Saudi Arabia, can they clear these waves quick enough, right? It's the second Lord of the game. It should be rather quick, but again, they're lacking in damage. They're going to lose this inhibitor turret on the top side. Base now a little bit exposed here. Can they hold on to these two? That's the work that's cut out for him. They're going to get poked down from Moreno. That's all he has to do. Stay this far out of the base, throw out some Astral Recalls, and call it a day. Lark, though, going to push them back. Nice hook.
A great hook by Troll now. This is the defense that they're trying to hold. Super Gendo with a response of the hard guard, plus the love waves onto poke, onto the sustain. Indonesia entering the base of Saudi Arabia now, just taking one more turret down. One defensive turret left for Saudi Arabia. They're on a cleanup. Clearly seeing potentially of taking down the base of Saudi Arabia. Indonesia on the lead, onto the damage and onto the defense. How will they hold this damage now if you're Saudi Arabia?
Buying more time. At this point, that's all they can do, right? We're nearly at 10,000 gold deficit. And like we said earlier in the series today, we have seen turnarounds. But Chorizo going to jump in with Last Insanity.
Last Insanity, will this be their chance though to
RWM.
initiate? Look at that, RWM, Chorizo though falling down low. Still has the immortality now, Sakin secures one kill, Sanji falls down.
Wow, he's still alive.
Spellvamp not being present now for Saudi Arabia, completing one more pickoff. So there is still time needed for Indonesia to even march in the base. They're looking for a catch, they're looking for a jump. So far, nobody's overcommitting yet for Saudi Arabia.
I think they still want to end it here. They know they've got the numbers advantage. Superken going to zone them out. Turret's going to fall here. Do they give it a go? It looks like they're just going to call it back. They're happy with fully exposing the base, right? They know 30 seconds from now, next Lord's going to be up. They're primed and ready to take their third win of the game. And once that happens, that's where it really comes down to it. Saudi Arabia, do you have enough damage now to deal with the Lord, to deal with the minions pushing in, the buffed up minions, and hopefully win some team fight? You know, that's where you have to be if you're Saudi Arabia. So right now, with Indonesia, full control of the game, 10,000 gold ahead. There you go. Lark picks up the Malefic Roar. I believe that is his 4th item, which is what he needs. We're 16 minutes into the game. He's finally where he needs to be, right? That's how far behind they were in the damage department. But I still think you don't contest this. You just try to clear things out the best you can. It looked like they wanted to even get the tier 1 on the top side. They couldn't get it though. So now, once again, base defense is where you're at for Saudi Arabia. You got to hold on. Don't get cut off here. That's exactly what Super Ken was looking for. And they are now at this point. 3rd Lord marching in the mid and expect Indonesia to force this situation. They're looking to cap out the game here before we get to that 20-minute mark.
Waves pushing in, Lord in mid. How will they defend? Tarzan has the Athena shield. Will this be enough? Automatic damage that Moreno has. Troll used the hook too early. Super Ken just rolling around in deep in the base of Saudi Arabia. Tarzan now falling and dropping down low. Void Chris trying to hold on and slow down 1 minute, but Chorizo now on to the Last Insanity. Bursting down 2, bursting down 3. Base lock now by Indonesia, now pushing all minions are in the base. Holding it through, damage is too much. Indonesia secures the 1st point against Saudi Arabia.
They made it happen, right? They had to do it on that one. Clean sweeping the objectives there. Turtles, the Lords, the turrets, ultimately gaining the 1st blood in the series. They want that grand final spot against the Philippines. Again, Saudi Arabia struggling here to really put up the proper fight, right? And at the same time, you got to say, early game, you're hoping they could emulate what they did before against the Philippines, but this time it was just well executed, well timed. A lot of these things here for Indonesia, able to get them that 1st win. So, you know, again, where do you find that reset for Saudi Arabia before they go to game 2? And, you know, knowing that it's Indonesia, they're most likely going to do something very similar, right, for the most part. And that's really controlling that beginning of the game, starting off fast-paced in the jungle. And that is kind of where even Tarzan has to, like, step up a little bit going into game 2.
They were forced to build defensive items. They were forced to even look for possible objectives to take, because most of the time, Super Ken, Moreno, all over the place, map-wise, macro-wise, nothing left for Tarzan to bounce back, not even objectives. It was a struggle for that hero alone to have a different way of executing defensive items, and with the strength and the prowess of the draft of Indonesia, starting from early game to the mid, it was a rising problem that we need to address.
It was.
At minute 10, you said it was a free Lord once again, and we see more of the objectives being taken slowly by Indonesia, and even just 1 turret up top, they're still struggling to push through, because if they cross the line there, even just by a pixel, they might get taken down.
Again, objectively, it was clean sweep taken for Indonesia. So, you know, which is kind of weird, because personality-wise, or at least from what we've seen from Tarzan, and the reason why he's named Tarzan, he usually controls a lot of the jungle, right? For the most part, I mean, he is the one that's usually, even against the Philippines, the previous series, he took all the turtles from the Philippines.
Yeah,
right. So
respectively.
where is that Tarzan here for this series? I think that is a big component to their success in this series if they want to take it to 3 games against Indonesia. Other than that, too, you still have to rely on. Even this is probably one of the harder games that we've seen for a Franco. You know, usually Franco is the one turning the tides of a lot of these games. He's such a high impact hero, the hooks alone.
Comfort pick.
There were some
Troll.
great ones, yeah, but unfortunately it didn't work out, you know, so maybe he pulls out the Cho in the next game. I don't know if it's going to be banned or not, but at the same time, and I think you just need Lark, man. Irithyll has not been it. For a lot of these teams that get out of control early on, Irithyll just takes too much time. Very similar in a way like a Claude, you know what I mean? And that's why I think Brody is such a great pick, because literally with Brody, you get 1 or 2 items, you're already a threat, you know, for the most part.
Your range, your damage, and your own ultimate. Even you escape a distance, there's a way of like taking you down.
Yeah.
And with even the snowball factor of his marksman Brody, we've seen 2 heroes, 2 marksman picks, 2 double MVPs in the semifinals actually had a chance of
You think it's here
maximizing the
too?
Brody pick.
You think it's Brody?
It could be. That's the damage department of Indonesia right there.
It's tough to deal with, and not only that, but I feel like even as you checked all those boxes, the other thing that wasn't happening really there was dealing with this Vin Angela, right? And
It's so different, even from
it is in a way it's
seeing him
different.
use it. It requires a lot of buttons, knowing how Vin works as a role.
I was gonna say we know that Vin can play it, right? Like that's the thing. We know that he does, but typically people, in a way, like Angela, there's certain players, like certain teams that like to go with that pick. This time it actually worked really well in the essence that, again, if you don't have a way to handle the healing or the sustain, the shielding and everything else, then it just gets, you know, out of control, unfortunately. And when someone just gets the heart guard, you know, that extra shield basically they have to work through, it's too much to burn through unless you can actually get that snowball effect going, where then you have the dominance ices, you have the sea halberds, the necklaces, you know, out there to deal with some of that sustain.
Yeah, sustain, answering a bit of damage, and mostly on point. He was just using Tortoise Maisons rolling over and over in the back line. We're expecting more of the members of even Indonesia to be the answer for the back line of Saudi Arabia, but it was just a jungler roaming around, just poking everybody out. Even they forced the flicker out of Vin in the early game. Didn't even matter.
Yeah. Well, with that, we can hear the crowds cheering for them. We are going to be taking a short break before we get ready for game number 2, so sit tight. We'll be back after this. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Joining us for the last series of the day. Again, it is day number 3 of the playoffs here for MLBB and for IESF WEC 2023. I am Niceyu, joined here with OSX. We've been calling the action now 3 days up to this point. We're 4 series in. It's down to match point here between Indonesia and, of course, Saudi Arabia, fighting for that spot to face off against the Philippines in the grand final.
If you could have a title for the movie of the day, this is The Climb, literally from the lower brackets.
Yeah.
Completing another challenge. Will this be the answer? Falling down, fell down, just right few hours from now. Who will rise up?
Again,
who will fall?
That's a great question, because there is a potential here for Saudi Arabia to take a game from Indonesia, take them to a 3-game. That would be their 3rd series, going 3 games. Real quick, though, let's take a look at the MVP from the previous game, game number 1 here. We had an idea who it would be, and it is, I don't think this is who we were thinking, man. This is Chorizo here on this X board, who has not had the best statistics so far up in this point in the playoffs.
In terms of picks, but Chorizo Sodal showed a lot of potential just penetrating through the defenses of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
You have the last insanity burst. Having the idea of having the immortality by anything else means for defense is a great pickup if you're an export. You have more chances of diving freely. Yes, you have the Firaga armor to be taken care of, but mostly on team fights such as that, you can either be an offering or you can either be the key here to make the team react.
Not only that, but also you pointed out with X-Borg, right? One of the great things about that pick alone is usually rushing the immortality, right? So even though you burn through, let's say, the armor, and then you have to get through that immortality, and then he spawns back up. So it's this whole interaction. Not only that, but he had the Ice Queen wand, right? So really, you're just trying to slow people down, get that last insanity off, get that true damage for the team, and then, you know, usually they can profit from there. So I'm wondering, too, if that's something they want to opt for once again, one of those picks, right? We are going to see, once we get to the draft of the 2nd game, there's going to be a switch of sides, of course. Now, that was the other thing, too, is like when we think about the draft from the previous game, we're not used to seeing blue side prioritize a Novaria like first pick, right? And that was even with a Fredrin open. So what is the change? What is the option here for Saudi Arabia first pick as they go through it? Again, I think it's better if Tarzan gets his hands on one of those junglers that allows him to do that, right? Just smooth sail into the early game, rotation-wise. And what we've seen, too, is, I don't know, we talk about this a lot with Fredrin alone, how he is tanky, he is utility, but we've seen players play him like an assassin, man. You know, for the most part, if they can get these early kills going on, or at least secure those early objectives, then you scale really well. And as we see Tarzan, right, it's just, you want to be able to set the pace for your team here. Lark needs that, Lark needs that to happen, right?
Extra
so
boost, yep.
Here it is. We already actually through that first phase of the bans. Saudi Arabia is going to first pick the Franco. They feel like that is the way to go in the hands of Troll here. Meanwhile, they give up the Novaria and the Baksha again. This is troublesome. Just looking at this right now, the way that I see it, you really have to make sure that this Franco is worth, right? Because you're giving up Novaria and Baksha here over to Indonesia.
You're willing to trade this signature pick. Lark, wow, not wasting a second. We have Terizla present as well. Also for the Brody. We're talking about the range, the danger back in game number 1. Now they want to do it themselves. Franco, yes, they need to make this worth, because at some point you need to make your vision, you need to make your reconnaissance around the team's enemy camp actually effective if you're up against a Baksha and you're up against an X-Borg. Magic damage, adaptive damage is a big of a problem if you are forced to even to just hold on to your own turret, because at early game, this is where a Baksha or even an X-Borg can actually visit you. Ganks are eminent, visits are eminent, and also the presence of the Novaria alone, either becoming a roam or even a mid lane, is also a threat by just revealing all of your locations and just using it as an echo recall, but all owning up the bans here, even the Angela, respecting the hell out of it.
I think you have to. You know, at that point, again, you don't really want to deal with that. Not only that, too, because typically with that Baksha picked up in the early part of the draft, I wouldn't have been surprised if Indonesia was like, yeah, let's just grab the Angela again. So now that that's banned, it changes things a little bit. Again, one thing that I like that Saudi Arabia did in their first phase is they're the ones that picked up the Brody here. this will enable Lark to do at least what he needs to do early game, right? Hopefully just get that 1 or 2 items. If he can get the 2 items that he needs, then it's going to be a very different game for Lark. But at the same time, you're really relying on Troll here, on the Franco, build up the momentum. Maybe he babysits the lane a little bit, keeps that gold lane under control, because right now, we haven't seen the gold lane option from Indonesia, right? We haven't seen that just yet.
You want to see something? With this kind of pairing, Baksha, Novaria, and even an X-Borg, we could see a Claude here finally show up. We haven't seen a Claude game from our 9 games and counting.
Whole lot of AoE.
Yeah, full on AoE, pair with Novaria, paired with that AoE Last Insanity. A perfect combo. Will it show? They ban out this Lancelot. There's always a possibility that the gold lane that you're mentioning could actually show up on what would be the prioritized damage. So they went for the tank.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is an open chance here to even just secure either the Claude, the Beatrix, or we even seen Melissa today.
Yeah, I think you have a great point, right? If you really want to build this lineup around AoE, you had 2 options. It was either the Claude or the Beatrix, because the way the Beatrix works, you have a gun for every situation, right? You can literally swap guns out based on how you want to approach this situation. And with this paired up alone, like these 4 picks here for Indonesia is quite a concern for Saudi Arabia. So now that they have their last 2 picks, we really got to wonder, how do they want to build this out? What's going in the mid lane, right? I mean, for the most part, Valentina is still open. It's not banned out. You might go that route, or you might want to meet off this Novaria with something else. Maybe Burst, right? Go with Burst potential. It's not going to be. Valentina's locked in. Probably it's just safe, right? Again, you're match point. So Valentina's the safe route, not to mention the Fredrin is also locked in. So they're going for it. It's funny, it's kind of weird seeing Fredrin like last in the pick here. Yeah.
And to see that the utility now is being capitalized by Saudi Arabia. One more thing also is loose is
they're going with that combination again. Novaria Eve.
Same thing, just change up the Beatrix. But on to the last phase, Coffin using this hero again to maximize more of the ultimates on the other side of the team. But this time around, team fighting prowess of Indonesia based on the draft is just so strong. Early game, they can develop it right away. But at some time you said, if this first pick Franco is actually worth it for Saudi Arabia.
That's a big question, yeah.
Might as well take it, go all in.
It's reminding me of earlier today where, you saw that first pick Fanny, and then it's just like, is this... You might as well, in a way, like I don't know if this is style, right? Because we were saying you either go out in style or you come out swinging, winning. Now Franco, I don't know how stylish he can get, right? He's a big Viking man, so we'll have to see. Again, these aren't going to be the cable finesse that we usually see, but it could be hooks, right? If he's able to lock in the hooks time and time again, then that gives the opportunity here for Saudi Arabia to actually snowball the lanes, snowball certain parts of the map. Because, when it comes to that early game, and as it looks like they're going to get things situated here, when it comes to the early game, they are able to control a lot of that, right? But previous matchup that they had in game number 1, or previous game 1 that we saw before this, was a similar fashion. Indonesia controlling it. How do you stop that from happening? For the most part, you really have to work around the lineup that you have. And with priority picking the Franco, like I said, that's the game plan. Let's land these hooks early on, hope that we can get a first blood. Even better if it's the Brody, right? Lark didn't have the best game, the previous one. So if you can get this early first blood, early double kill in the hands of a Brody, then that gives you a chance to scale really well, hopefully taking us to a game 3.
Okay, damage, scaling factor present now for Saudi Arabia, tools to work with. Will this be the chance to bounce back? Or will Indonesia continue dominating the lower bracket?
We're going to find out here, ladies and gentlemen. It is match point here. Saudi Arabia trying to hold on, take us to a game 3. Indonesia, we heard them earlier. They want to see the Philippines in the grand final tomorrow. So it starts here. A simple start. Look at the hooks, though, too. This is what we kind of expect Troll. He was putting some pressure there in Indonesia, right? That's typically what Francos are going to do. Troll is going to put himself alongside these buffs, try to slow them down a little bit, right? And at the same time, you can already see kind of the rotations happening here. Super Ken making his way to the jungle.
Okay, now for the progress, having a great jump start here. Eyes on the objective, Super Ken, and also the jungler of Saudi Arabia, Tarzan, on level 3, having a very setup now, being stunned here, using that knock-up. Super Ken is now trying to flee here, but now being stunned by Lark here. Will he able to make that mark and damage? Sakandel is trying to be slowed down, connecting the passive, and also Warrior was being picked up. Saudi Arabia looking for an avenue, looking for a mark here to actually have damage onto Indonesia. It still just pokes an exchange of the skill.
And at this point, again, like I'm saying, just deal with these rotations early on. First objective is usually going to be the focus, right? That turtle, when it pops up here in about 10 seconds, is what these teams want to go for, right? So at this point, let's see how it plays out. The big thing is the level 4s, right? Not everybody has it just yet. They're trying to rush to get this level 4. That's why they're putting themselves in the XP lane. They want to grab some of that XP, get these ultimates available for them. Half health now. Both junglers planning themselves where they need to be.
Now, first objective of the game has been offered to the table. Super Ken, but Tarzan secures the objective. Already being placed down. Cerezo, last insanity connection onto Cuffin and Troll, going to back
Goes
away.
in.
Penalty zone onto 3. Moreno secures False Blood, and Sandy as well, taking down 1. Cerezo falls down, a trade, but the objective goes to Saudi Arabia.
Okay, so turtle secured here for Saudi Arabia. Great start. This is what we were saying Tarzan had to do, right? Lock down those objectives and start the snowball effect. Also on top of it, the kill went to Sanji across the board. Moreno got theirs for Indonesia. You can see it here in the replay. Great last insanity. Penalty zone for the answer, though. Great job collapsing down on that setup that was planned by Indonesia. So, with that, both quality kills for 2 different roles on these two teams right now. But how can they utilize that? Moreno having the early kill is going to be crucial as he scales in. Troll, though, might have been off a little more than he could chew. Flickers out here.
Taking damage there, being forced to retreat back. Super Ken using the Tortoise Poissons, trying to speed up, trying to chase down 1, but Troll used out a resource. No combo of surprise just yet for 89 seconds. Meanwhile, up top, Cerezo has half HP. Still has a bit of frag armor left. The poke potential right now of just having, oh, that was so close. Impure Rage onto this export is so effective on early game.
Yeah, a lot of poke potential, right, for the most part, but same thing can be said here. Okay, Super Ken looking to make a play.
Oh, speaking of play here, being trapped, Troll can't do much. Tarzan, they'll need to fall back there. Damage, Vin tries to poke down another one from Saudi Arabia, but Saudi will now be forced to go back on their own turret. Utilizing this early game capital, Saka now is on level 6. Utilizing the waves, utilizing the clears. Still a great start though.
Tough. Moreno now, 2 kills in his favor, right? Gonna be working on more. They're pushing Cuffin back here though. Not gonna be able to get a kill, but that's what I'm saying, man. Two kills early on. Your mid laner for Indonesia is gonna be great, especially as they set up for these fights. It's gonna be even harder now for Saudi Arabia to contest these, and that's why they gotta rely. Troll, if he can find a hook. They're down some numbers here. Less than half health of the turtle.
3 versus 4 versus
Tarzan
4.
gets it.
Tarzan completely saying that twice. Retribution right on point. A slow game that we're seeing onto the kills, but onto the objective. They know their way through this. This time around, game number 2.
Okay, once again, first item going to be locked in here for Lark. Off to a better start, right? Gold-wise, relatively even in the gold lane. That's crucial. Big pickup, Ice Queen Wand now for Moreno. Going to help slow people down even further. That's why it's a big quality pickup. 2 kills on the board this early on. Makes things devastating to deal with. If you get trapped in the ultimate of Moreno, it's going to be really hard to move around. Lark, on the other hand, like I said, Malefic Roar will allow him to put some of that damage throughput against Indonesia in some of these skirmishes, in some of these team fights, which will really help them, hopefully, gain some advantage here. And once again, paired with Troll running the focusing mark emblem, getting that extra percentage damage will help if he's landing the hooks. Like that, not the way you want to go about it, right? Now the Iron Hook's down, here's the response from Indonesia.
There's counter go here, resource been used. Indonesia is here to respond as well as Tarzan. On point on the reinforcement, even to rotation. You're right about the skirmishers, Naisu. Capitalizing on those small mistakes. Turnaround, even in the lead right now in just 6 minutes, almost just 100.
Yeah, I mean, economy-wise, it's fine, right? Still pretty much even across the board for the most part. Both teams going a little bit more cautious in terms of this game, too. It's also just kind of hard to deal with because, again, Vin providing a ton of vision, you know, on this roam Novaria. It's a great thing about it. All he has to really do is provide vision, poke down if he can, relatively just play around the rotations of your jungler, right? Follow Super Ken around, wait for that next turtle to come up in a couple seconds. That's what they're doing. But I will say, Tarzan's relatively doing a great job. He's evening out with Super Ken. They're going to battle it out once again for this
Sanji
turtle. Let's see if he can secure
on
it.
Super Ken, trying to slow him down. But just by looking at this positioning, Indonesia has an advantage. Meanwhile, all ultimates are up though. Looking for a chance here. That is the ultimate being laid
Goes
down
in.
onto this turtle. Now who's going to get this first objective? The Stars and securing another one for Saudi Arabia. Ultimate being placed down. Super Ken now being trapped in the wall. Tarzan missed a racing strike right onto Super Ken. But this time around, Indonesia completely looking.
Wow.
Still sustaining. Coffin still lives. Now this time around, immortality has been popped there. Chorizo though, gonna fall back in his own lane. 2-member down, but still, Saudi Arabia rises to the occasion, stealing another objective against Indonesia.
That was like clutch, but at the same time, you're wondering, Cuffin, did he intend to do that, right? He dropped his own real-world manipulation after taking it from Moreno, slowed them down a little bit, flickered. I'm not sure if that's exactly where he wanted to go, but he ended up surviving. So great play there, Cuffin, able to survive. Not only that, but Tarzan securing the third turtle of the game. This is what we were saying before the draft, man. He's got to do that. What he did against the Philippines, he's doing it here. Off to a great start, keeping the economy in the early game even. Yeah, there's a couple more kills here for Indonesia. Now they're going to get some space advantage to work around with. So it's up to Saudi Arabia, right? Do they want to find their own pickoff? They have the tools for it. It's got to come from Troll here. Leading into that first Lord, crucial, right? If they lose a big skirmish or even a team fight in the next minute or two, that's the mid-game transition we have been constantly talking about from their match with the Philippines and now here for Indonesia. They have to be able to get this transition down. Don't die. If you can get a pick off here, best thing that can happen for Saudi Arabia. Or just wait, stall it out. Wait for that Lord to come up in less than 20 seconds. Fight it out and hope that you can come out on top of that team fight, right? That's what you have to do for Saudi Arabia. What we saw from them in the previous matchup was usually at this point in time losing a member, right? And then they're really in no contention for the Lord, which comes up here in just a few seconds. So right now, Saudi Arabia is taking the more passive route. This is better. They're building up their items here. At the same time, Lark is where he needs to be on this Brody, keeping it pretty even Stevens with the opposing gold laner here for Sakin. All he has is a BOD, right? So your damage is there for Saudi Arabia. They should be able to hold this together, if not win this fight. And it's up to Tarzan once again to get this retribution off. He's 3 for 3 on the turtles. Can he do it for the Lord?
Missed the hook onto Moreno though. Used one hook. Saudi Arabia has now used a resource out of this kind of team fight. Meanwhile, Indonesia is just poking out the Lord half on HP, revealing so much.
Look at the pokes.
That's the poke now. Chorizo is using the last insanity on the Troll. Boosting the damage though, they're still deflecting it now. He's going to force the retreat back. Sakin takes down Sanji. One more member down for Saudi Arabia. How are they still doing it? Sakin as well with a follow-up. Indonesia looking eye for this objective.
Come down to the retreat.
Still holding down. Sakin being trapped in RWM. Still maintaining through the fight defensively. Still winning their first objective. Indonesia slowly bouncing back.
The ball was there for Saudi Arabia. They dropped it, and now Indonesia will punish. They got that Lord. They got a couple kills. You already see it in the gold difference now. They built it up, right? 3K ahead nearly, and at this point, once again, it's getting tough. Sakin only had the BOD for a while. He picked up his next item here, and now they play around this kind of power spike, right? They have spiked in the right department on their carries. They're going to go ahead and push in these tier 2 turrets. Lord is going down on the bottom lane. So all Indonesia has to do is kind of even out these waves a little bit, get prepped up and ready for it. Now Troll, on the other hand, is going to be crucial. Can he land the hook? If not Troll, then let Sanji. Look at that. That's it right there.
That's
but
the
it's
combo.
Super Ken.
But the follow-up wasn't there. Bloody Hunt was not even used as of the
Oh,
moment.
man.
Super Ken, look at the poke. Another one goes down. Tarzan in the hands of Finn. Now on to the roll. What a
Another hook.
flicker with the combo. That's the Bloody Hunt on to Cerezo.
Nice.
Still managed to skirt Sanji with a 3-man penalty zone right on the back. Still maintaining that spell vamp working through. Endo taking down 1, 3, and 4 members here of Indonesia present. Counting on 5 and present. Tower now being taken down. Lark as well receiving damage. Bursted down by Moreno. 4-0-3 on a roll. Last Insanity being used now into the base of Saudi Arabia. Wow, 2 turrets left. 2 turrets left for this country to hold. You look at the poke. And just as that, Indonesia having the right targets, but Troll landing now the hooks that we've been waiting for since the first game.
So as I was saying, Saudi Arabia, they had to get that. They had to land this mid-game to late-game transition. They haven't been able to do it, so now you're working from this deficit. Is it completely out of the game? Not yet, right? Again, we've seen games flip over, 10,000 gold difference here. But ultimately it comes down to they have the follow-up they need. Tarzan getting whittled down.
Look at that Void Crystal slowing him down. Sakin finally securing another kill. Tarzan with a 3rd time falling down in this marksman. Beatrix a 4-0-2. Still remaining deathless. Indonesia, 25 seconds for this objective to show. This is the Lord. They're going to have a push here. There's only 1 point. There's none towers or no turrets have been taken out of Indonesia just yet. Just 2 up top and down bottom.
Yeah, so they got a little space to work with. Even given the situation that like Lark was in earlier, what I was saying is, you know, he had some of the items he needed, but unfortunately for him, on a hero that has performed so well even just today alone, hasn't been able to utilize this Brody pick just yet. And remember, I asked you during the draft here, OSX, was the Franco worth it? Picking it up, first pick on the blue side. Right now, it's not turning out to be what it is. They find the lockdown.
What is the answer? Sanji penalty zone onto 1. Moreno finally falls down. Lark finally getting a kill. Cerezo though, last Insanity onto Kelvin. Now they're forcing a retreat back. Sakin now remaining unstoppable, making another kill. 1 more. That's a double for Sakin. Indonesia now marching in pursuit. Taking down Kelvin, now falling down low. Still managed to survive, using that Tortoise Puissance for safety. Still, 3 members still left.
Okay, this could be a push they're looking for. Like you saw, they're still waiting. They're gonna line up a couple shots here, waiting to buy some time. The Lord now spawning, making its way down the bottom because that inhibitor turret is down there for Saudi Arabia. Now the eye's set for Indonesia to take these resources, get reset, get ready to go, and possibly end the game here. At the 14-minute mark, as this Lord makes its way down the bottom portion, you can see Indonesia getting prepped and ready. The rest of that wave was pushed in and handled, timing it correctly. Vin now making his way for the team. Expect some astral recalls to be sent out to whittle down the forces of Saudi Arabia. They've got to deal with the Lord first and hold on to the turrets if they can. It looks like they're able to do that. Now as the waves push in here, Indonesia once again on the decision. Do we press this? Do we press this situation? They do.
Coffin now is being forced back to regen. Cerezo though, eyeing on Tarzan, half HP. It's still going through damage, still feeling through those defenses now, dropping down the turrets. Minions pushing in. Indonesia now is trying to climb back their way. Still remaining, still holding the defense. Saudi Arabia clearing up minions, clearing up waves. Still looking forward to live another minute.
They buy time, yes, they do that OSX here, but now, once again, base fully exposed. And it looks like Indonesia still wants to plant themselves here. They might even press the go again, even without waiting for the next Lord. They want to go for it. Cerezo.
Cerezo with the last Insanity, will it connect? Will it translate to damage? Sergeant now still holding, their shield is up. Void Crystal is down. Still maintaining this. Okay, Wind of Nature. Pick up by Lark.
Wind of Nature being picked up here. Another defensive item is what they need. They're still working from this deficit. 7,000 gold, right? Lord's gonna come up here in about 30 seconds. I just don't think they can contest it. It's better off Saudi Arabia decides to just be on the defensive, wait in their base, unless They find an amazing angle to come through with a concealed play from Troll, looking for a hook. Again, priority picked, this Franco was in the draft, and it has not resulted into what they've wanted to take us to a Game 3, and Indonesia knows this. They wait patiently for that Lord to come up here. They plant themselves in all these possible angles that Troll could look for. It's getting even harder for them to find a moment. They're spotted out immediately.
Super Ken
Wow.
trying to roll in. Lark now being bursted down by Chorizo, trying to take Troll down, use to conceal, going back for a defense. Oh, one member down, no damage, no marksman for Saudi Arabia. A clear window opportunity for this Lord to be taken by Indonesia.
Okay, without luck, there's not. Now the question about can they contest it is completely out of the window. They're not going to be able to do that. And just for safekeeping, Chorizo's going to plant himself in the jungle so that Tarzan does not have an opportunity to take this Lord. And this could very well be it. Securing this third Lord of the game, Indonesia, primed and ready to clear these lanes out and get ready for the assault from the base of Saudi Arabia. What are the chances of Saudi Arabia holding on a little bit longer, 17 minutes in the game with this big of a deficit? It's slim, but not impossible. Biggest thing is how do you react to this setup, what they're gonna do. Chorizo is gonna be the main man to press this situation for Indonesia. They've gotta avoid as much as possible some of that last insanity. They've gotta avoid some of the poke from Vin, now picking up an Ice Queen Wand. And with this Lord, they have to get rid of it as soon as possible. It cannot get to the crystal, the base here. And here you go.
That's the poke. Lark achieves damage, almost
Lark's
dropping
in trouble.
down last. Insanity onto Chorizo, secures the point. Another one falls down. Lark is down as well. Indonesia's right onto the base. This is their only way to secure their way back up in the grand finals. Now onto the damage. They're looking for Troll. None other than the tank of Saudi Arabia falls down in the base. The void and the crystal is gone. Indonesia is finally given away to climb back in the grand finals.
8 games. Indonesia has played 8 games today. They worked their way through the lower bracket, and ahead of them is a classic matchup tomorrow against the Philippines to defend that title. They won IESF last year in Bali, and they're here to play against the Philippines tomorrow. That is going to be a series of best of 5. And man, have we seen a lot of action these past 3 days. OSX, we had 4 series today. We had 5 yesterday and 4 on day 1. And we have seen some amazing things. Again, hats off to Saudi Arabia too. They've made it very far. A team that a lot of people didn't know what to expect. They saw them play their hearts out in Riyadh at the Asian Championships. They've seen their journey up to this point through the group stages and staying in the upper bracket here in Romania. And it's unfortunate that this is where their journey ends, but they should be proud again what they've accomplished. Indonesia is just a very, very strong team. And like I said, this classic matchup between 2 powerhouse countries, Indonesia and the Philippines tomorrow.
Wow, Saudi Arabia. We can consider a ranking 3 for the countries who made it, even in the lower bracket. Super Ken having the Boksha. 4-0-2 KDA. This pick, man, changes a lot.
Yeah.
Team fights, objective takes, and also more of the pokes that you can actually do in the backline of the enemy. Having the immortality, having the Antikyras, even the Guardian helmet, even the cursed helmet. All tools even complete to just be in the front line.
How does I was gonna say, how does he wear the 2 helmets here? He's got 2 right there, you know. So
maybe that one is the cursed helmet is small. Then you go with the Guardian helmet next because it has an opening right in the.
So great performance there. Again, it's great to see a different role with the MVP, and that's what I was saying. As we started today, you have all these roles being highlighted by different players, different countries. And it's not always the gold lane that gets MVP, right? So that time, it's the Spaksha here, the hands of Super Ken. Great play. Again, I think Tarzan did an amazing job in the jungle. It's something like I said, Saudi Arabia needs to continue to go and improve because that's all they've been doing up to this point, and it's amazing to see what they've accomplished so far. For Indonesia, they're, like I said, across the board, they are all playing amazing in the roles, but again, tomorrow, who they're up against, the Philippines, and basing off what we saw yesterday, I hope there was enough time for Indonesia to really like reset. Today was a hard day for them, man. They played 8 games. They had 2 series in the beginning. They took a little rest. They come here, they sweep, right, which is great. So now they get a little bit of a longer rest period between now and tomorrow, right? Because I feel like they need it. They need to be able to reset, recalibrate, rehydrate, and you know, tomorrow is going to be the work cut out for them.
Yeah.
Because if you're just basing this off of what we saw yesterday, it was tough, right? It was a rough game for Indonesia.
A long day yesterday, even for today. Just having the endurance and having the perseverance of not giving up just yet.
Exactly.
We saw 6 tiebreaker games. How we started this day and having a way of finishing this in a 2-0 in a straight dominating fashion, completely giving back another chance. This is the climb of Indonesia, and they made their way once again in the grand finals, meeting Philippines once again.
Well, we can't wait for tomorrow, but first off, we are going to hear, passing it back over to the stage to hear in this interview, to hear from Indonesia and how they felt, you know, after this whole long day, what they have to say. So let's go ahead and throw it over on stage and hear from our winners.
Thank you so much, Naisu. And that's right, John Fallout, Kefalukas here, live on the main stage, ready to congratulate for the second time in IESF World Esports Championship. Indonesia makes it to the grand final. Make some noise for Indonesia. And we'll welcome them onto the stage, please, for a quick post-game interview to hear their thoughts as we get ready for a rematch, grand finals against their rival, the Philippines, waiting to play against them yet again. It's going to be a rematch from Bali, very similar to what we saw in Bali just 8 months ago. Indonesia, Philippines, grand finals. Moreno, I'm going to ask you, what's going to be different this time? What is different about this Indonesia team?
No different, I think still champion.
All right, I like the mentality. Still the champions. He still thinks Indonesia's on top. Obviously, they took the win last time against the Philippines. This time, though, the Philippines sitting in the finals. Talk to me about your run so far today. You had to win 3 matches against Mongolia, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, some great teams. Was it hard at all for you guys, or are you feeling so good right now like you're the best team in the world?
A little bit hard.
Just a little bit hard. Okay, you had to give respect to his teammates. I respect that tremendously. Amazing. Hey, you heard Vin say he's the MVP for his team earlier. I got to ask you now, in your opinion, who had the MVP performance today for your team?
Super Ken.
Super Ken it is. I like the mentality. Well, once again, everybody, make some noise for Team Indonesia. They'll be getting ready for a grand final rematch against the Philippines tomorrow. Will it be the same result? Will Indonesia be your champion, or will the Philippines take it? Guess what? Tomorrow we get to find out. Our grand final here at the World Esports Championship. Once again, I'm Fallout. I'm going to throw it back to our casters to close us out tonight. Congratulations one more time. Round of applause for Indonesia. Back to you, casters.
Thank you so much, John and Indonesia. They're great to hear from you. Confident words, and that's what they need, man. They need that going into tomorrow. Again, compared to yesterday, we're ending early. That's great. It was smooth
They're
sailing.
so light, by the way.
It was smooth sailing today, and you know, maybe Indonesia feels that way as well, despite going 8 games today. But like I said, this is great for them. They need the rest. They need to relax a little bit before tomorrow, right? And just get prepped and ready, because it's a best of 5 against the Philippines, who, let me remind you, is undefeated up to this point.
Even now.
Yeah.
Will that change tomorrow? Will we see a straight 5 games? Let's see the final bracket right now, because it's just the 3rd day, and now tomorrow, this is where the real challenge begins. Grand finals once again, Philippines versus Indonesia. A classic rivalry.
Little flashback from last year in Bali. It was the same countries representing, and what happened? If I recall, Indonesia swept the Philippines.
Ooh.
Right? And so, in a way, there's a couple different versions of revenge going on here. There's a whole lot of history between these two countries in competitive MLBB. And whether, you know, it's this team or that team representing the country, the main point is you can always expect a hell of a grand finals when it's the Philippines and Indonesia. So Can't wait to see how that unfolds tomorrow. Again, something that I'm also expecting is how these teams kind of treat this, right? Before the grand finals, this long stretch of group stages, playoffs, and where they are today, how do they reset? How do they prepare for that? I'm wondering, like, do they really spend a lot of time, like, actually preparing, or is it more so like, all right, coaches are like, just relax. You know, you
Take a
you've
breather
done it
out.
all. Yeah, you take a breather.
This calls for a celebration in a way.
Yeah,
Even just by bit, you can have a chance to actually go back up here in the grand finals. Being in just with all of the winning interviews that we saw today from Indonesia,
yeah.
that is just complete confidence, passion, perseverance. And yeah, you're right. They need more rest and even celebrate a bit just to get their way through, again, in a great set tomorrow against Philippines. A longer day, a longer match for tomorrow.
Can't wait for it. Again, thank you guys for joining us so much, being patient with us throughout the playoffs and the group stages and everything else. Hope you enjoyed the codes. If you're watching on the stream, I'm sure there'll be more for you guys tomorrow. Again, calling the action, I'm Nice, joined here with OSX. We'll be back tomorrow for this grand final matchup, Indonesia and the Philippines in a best of 5. We'll see you then.